Well, it feels good to be back after a long 4-day weekend. Actually, it just feels a little bit better today because Thanksgiving Day I came down with a cold, which I get about one a year. I used to go through a period of life where I went multiple years without ever having a cold. And then the last few years, I always seem to get one real humdinger during the course of the season. This one came a little early, and I still don't know the source of it, but obviously, somewhere along the lines, I was exposed to someone, likely shook hands with them, whether it be at church or here at the radio station, or you grab the grocery cart, and if you don't wipe it down with some of those handy wipes they have there that supposedly kill off a lot of these things, you're likely going to pick it up in those cases too. So I ended up after dinner on Thursday having a runny nose, which continued through Saturday, and then after I dried out, if you will, I know this is TMI. Then I actually had that really stuffy feeling in the nose once everything dried up. And then by yesterday, the cough started. So I'm going to try to get through today without too much hacking on the radio. Some people would say you're a hack already, but we'll leave it at that, and we'll move along. And if I do have one of those moments, I'll try not to share it with you over the air. You'll just hear dead silence if I get an opportunity to punch the little cough button here off to the side. I wanted to open up talking a little bit about a story that here you go again. Media once more picking its favorites when it comes to dealing with people in politics. Glenn Kessler, who's the fact checker at the Washington Post, which means he's there to make anybody right of center look bad, assigned four Pinocchios today to Donald Trump's claim that Trump says he would have won the election, the popular vote, not just the electoral vote, but the popular vote, if illegal aliens hadn't voted. Now, the liberals are just, how dare he? Oh, they're going right back to the old playbook, which didn't serve them at all during the election anyway, but, you know, they can't break the habit. I mean, it's just one of those things. They're unable to actually look at this and understand that, that the American people don't buy into that politically correct baloney anymore and that we know what's up. But they're already saying, oh, Trump is insinuating he has no evidence. Well, all right, media, why don't you go out and look for the evidence? Well, we're certainly not going to be doing that. Well, excuse me, just before the election, President Obama said during an interview, and I'm paraphrasing, I don't have the quote in front of me, but I told you about it on air a few weeks ago. He said that it would be highly unlikely that if illegal aliens voted, that anybody would be looking to track them down and prosecute them. In other words, hey, go vote if you want to. And remember who's going to give you the free lunch. Yeah, the Democrats, right? So, and we don't know because we've had liberal judges for years saying it's mean-spirited to have people have to produce an ID that they're actually a citizen and can vote in an election. And all you really you need a couple of pieces of mail. That, from your power company, you go down and you get a driver's license, and then you use that driver's license as your photo ID, and then you end up voting. And so we don't know. I mean, it could be tens of millions of illegal aliens ended up voting in this election. But if nobody's going to look into it, and the media is not obviously going to do that job, because the media doesn't want this exposed if indeed it's true, so they're just going to stand back and throw pebbles again at Donald Trump and scream that he's mean and he's racist and that he has no facts. On the other hand, if someone comes along on some freak on some left-wing website and says the Russians may have hacked the election in, by the way, in only a handful of states, then we have to have a recount. And so now they're off to do that. The whole goal of this recount, which will not change the results, is to try and delegitimize Trump's victory. And if they demand that these be hand counted, these ballots be hand counted in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, then it could slow things down to the point where the electors in those states would not be you get it? And Trump would not have the 270 necessary to win. Now, the election would go to the House of Representatives, where it then would end up in Trump's court, because the Republicans there would give it to Donald Trump. And in that sense, Trump still would become the president. But then the liberals would scream for years, oh, he's not really, they had to do it over there in the House of Representatives. Pay no attention to the recount we did that didn't come up with the results we want. No, media would then join in because they're fellow travelers too. The propagandists would join in, claiming that Trump really isn't the legitimate president because the House of Representatives, controlled by Republicans, just wanted their guy in the White House, even though, of course, they don't really like Donald Trump over there at the House of Representatives because he's not conservative enough for most of those people who are actually serving in that august body. Now, was it yesterday or Saturday? I'm driving down the street in my car and I decided I put a new antenna on it so my radio reception's a little bit better. And I'm punching the dial around and I came across National Palestinian Radio, known as NPR, which is socialized form of media paid for by the government and funded mainly by a lot of liberals who would like to continue to fund it for liberal propaganda reasons. And there was a guest. Now, this is on a very left leaning radio network. And the guest was saying it would be nearly impossible for the Russians or any other evil actor out there to rig one of our elections. He said you would have to have tens of thousands of people actually working at the local precinct levels, right down to neighborhoods in various cities and across the country in order to pull this off. So he's saying it can't happen, and he's saying it on the most liberal radio network in America. And that's echoed today by the Review and Outlook, the lead editorial in the Wall Street Journal, which points out we don't have national elections. Actually, liberals have been saying that what we need to do is just tie everything into one central computer in Washington, and then when you vote, let's say in Burley or in I don't know, Reno or in Boise, your vote will just be tallied in Washington immediately. It'll just zip along that fiber optic line, and bing, there's another vote for their girl. That's what they're thinking. If you have that, we don't have that type of system. If you have that type of system where you just have one place, one national clearinghouse, then yes, it could become easier, but likely easy to hack an election in this country. But as it turns out, we have a diffuse election system. Those votes that are collected are all counted at the local level, at the precinct level, in the neighborhoods. In the big cities, sometimes block by block. And then they're all added to a statewide, first a county tally, then a statewide tally, and then they go into the national tally. So unless, you're seeing a lot of people wandering the streets, I mean, you're talking thousands of them in just places like Twin Falls County alone who are named Boris and who keep nodding at you on the street saying, it's great pleasure to be here. Then we're not likely dealing with a Russian-hacked election. You got it? And yet media won't delve into those ridiculous claims, but they'll claim Trump is wrong. He has no evidence. By the way, we're not going to look for any evidence when it comes to illegal aliens voting. So you already understand what we're up against over the next 8 years with this gang of cutthroats working in the mainstream media. Bill Colley with you on Top Story today on News Radio 1310, KLIX and newsradio1310.com. It's 8:15. I've got 33. We have some light snow still in some parts of the area, dusting mostly. I say mostly. Someone will, well, I got at least 3 inches. I'm not where you are, okay? I'm sitting in a little windowless box on the south side of Twin Falls. So I'm just telling you what we're seeing. All right, let's leave it at that. Not looking for your calls about how many inches of snow you have up in Blaine and then various places you may be checking in from this morning. Do be careful. Obviously, there's going to be some possibilities that some of those roads may be a little slick from all of this, but this isn't remedial life. We're not going to be sitting here telling you to breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. It snows in winter. You know how to deal with it if you've done it before. A telephone number if you'd like to reach our program today, 736-0300. That's 736-0300. Now, you need all sorts of identity information to get on an airplane and fly anywhere in this country. But if you choose to go out and vote, no big deal, right? If you go out and vote by the tens of millions and you're here illegally, it could, yes, indeed influence an election. And I'll tell you what, I think Trump is spot on. He doesn't have the time to delve into all of this. Your local governments aren't likely going to be doing it. They've got bigger fish to fry. So it does become media's job. If media would do it. You're up next. You're on the air on Top Story on KLIX. Go ahead.
Good morning, Bill. They just don't get it. The Democrats, every time they lose something, they change the rules or move the goalpost or They just don't get it that the people have spoken in this deal with the recount. Follow the money. I mean, look at the money they're getting to do this, and that brought Clinton right out. Her eyes got big. Whoa, more money. Let's go, baby. So it's all about the money and the perception, and they still haven't got it that we wanted our country back. And thanks, Bill. You was part of that.
Hey, thank you. Thank you for the call. There's a writer at a website called Mike.com, which is a left wing website. And she went out and asked people for instances of Trump voters doing violence to minorities around the country. She didn't actually go out doing the legwork herself. She sat at her plush office somewhere and asked people to give her some details on all of this. By the way, there were riots in all of these major cities, and apparently she had her blinders on and didn't see it. If you were on Mars over the last month, you might not have noticed, but if you were in the good old USA, you quickly picked up on the fact that the angry liberals who aren't happy with the results are out there trying to smash windows, loot stores, burn things, throw rocks and Molotov cocktails at police officers. Such good-hearted people. They all claim to be looking out for everyone else. So this woman sets this up, and she didn't realize it, but she opened herself up, speaking of fraud and hacking, any number of things. So a couple of conservatives decided, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. They made up a phony idea of a woman who claimed that she was an indigenous American. That is what Native American doesn't work for me, because if I was born in this country, then I'm a Native American. So we'll say indigenous person. And this woman claimed that she was, this fictitious woman claimed that she was in a store and a man bumped into her and was a big burly white man, called her names, told her to go back to her own country, assuming she was Latino. And she said, I am in my country. And so this writer, this liberal writer over at Mike.com feverishly published this story about how this mean old Trump supporter. Now, even in the phony email that these conservatives sent this stupid reporter, they never said the guy admitted to being a Trump supporter or had a Trump hat on or anything else. It was just assumed that if he's a big white guy and he's brusque like that, and again, these are all fictitious, these are made up people, but it's assumed that he must be a Trump supporter by the left, and in fact by leftist journalists. So the woman published the story, and then afterwards the conservatives came forward with all the details on how they'd hoodwinked this woman, and now she won't even admit that she got pranked. So she's going to stick with a lie they made up and told her because it backs up her narrative. This is what we're dealing with in this country, folks. I'll tell you what, if they keep this up, the revolution is coming. And we've said it before. You think that the liberals in the big cities and in the suburbs of America have any idea how to go out and fight one of those? Oh, we're going to get a banner and march down the street, and if somebody talks to us and is mean, we're going to have to run off to our safe space. Meanwhile, how is a southern Idaho rancher going to handle that? You betcha. Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and newsradio1310.com. Randy Staples will be joining us a bit later this morning. He's going to be talking about the BLM effort to cut down the juniper trees. I've been telling you the last couple of weeks about our friends at Waddell & Reed. And we are just a few months shy of Waddell & Reed celebrating its 80th birthday. It's an investment firm that's been in business now for, 79 years and some change, since 1937, offering two mutual fund families. Most investors, if you go to the investment office, they only offer one. And they're not going to be looking to put your money into some get-rich-quick scheme. They're going to do a conservative plan for you that, in other words, protects your money for the long run. But they also have to recognize that you're an individual and that your desires, when it comes the day you may retire or no longer be able to work, that obviously that's unique. You're not necessarily like the guy next door or the guy who may be waiting in the office ahead of you or behind you. So they tailor these for your individual needs and build these around your individual goals. They take planning personally. Bill Colley with you on Top Story this morning on News Radio 1310, KLIX and newsradio1310.com. Coming up on 25 minutes now after 8 o'clock, and right now I've got 33. Not going to be the most impressively warm week we've seen in a while, and in fact, next week temperatures probably will reach their coldest of the season so far. But as I said earlier, most of us can get through just a wee bit of snow. It's not like it's anything more than a nuisance. It has to come at some point. Hey, I've got a quick note. Some people are saying that the headline on this is misleading. This is from thehill.com. Tulsi Gabbard is the pick for Secretary of State, not Mitt Romney. And this is according to some writers there. And it says that Representative Gabbard, who's been a liberal Democrat, embodies the very essence of the president elect's ideological departure from the interventionist policies that have plagued this nation for the past 2 decades. If you didn't know this, Gabbard, she's from Hawaii. And she ended up leaving the Democrat National Committee over some issues with Hillary Clinton and some of the other thugs who were running that committee. She's also an Iraqi war veteran. She served 2 tours of duty overseas. So now there is a belief, and like Nikki Haley, she's actually got ancestry from India. So I guess there's a belief that she will be able to relate to people in in that southern part of Asia, perhaps, better than some other choices. Now, I would think that the money still at this point is on Mitt Romney getting the job, but not according to Kellyanne Conway, who made an appearance yesterday on the Clinton News Network, CNN, and told Dana Bash otherwise.
I felt compelled to mention it because it's just breathtaking in scope and intensity, the type of messages I've received from all over the country. And I'm just me, I'm not Donald Trump. And so just as his former campaign manager, the number of people who feel betrayed to think that a Governor Romney would get the most prominent cabinet post after he went so far out of his way to hurt Donald Trump. There was the Never Trump movement, and then there was Mitt Romney. He gave speeches against Donald Trump. He attacked his character. I never heard Governor Romney come out and say, hey, you know, I have a problem with X, Y, and Z, but that 25 million job creation plan over the next 10 years is really something to look at. The fact that you'll reduce the capital gains tax and the tax on employers and businesses, or you'll unleash energy investment, or you have a 10-point plan to reform the Veterans Administration, none of that was ever said.
So she is, according to liberal media, she has gone rogue, and that she is now in hot water with Team Trump, and that is the other part of the inner circle by bringing this up. I have a tendency to believe that she's actually playing the media here. The Trump folks, I think, have developed a knack for this because I saw Newt Gingrich making the same claims twice in the last week. I saw Mike Huckabee make the same claims twice in the last week, and they're all part of the Trump transition effort. Maybe not maybe they're not in the meetings every day, but they played a big role in all of this. So there has been a lot of this discussion about Romney, and the only way Romney could end up in this job, having been mean to Trump, is to maybe do some sort of mea culpa where he'd come out and issue an apology. I don't know that that's going to happen either, and I don't know that Donald Trump is really looking for one because he's already picked Nikki Haley to serve at the United Nations, and she was just as big a critic of Trump as Romney happened to be. But I was listening to the liberals at Morning Joe this morning for about 10 minutes. They avoided the recount story altogether because they don't want to get into that. And they went on and on about, no Romney and how Conway has gone off the reservation. They're trying to avoid talking about that story out in Wisconsin, so they were on to this. But I really do believe that in the long run, what's taking place here, this is an effort. I think it's very well played by Team Trump to keep the media on its toes. They're off balance. And I hope it continues because it's the only way in the long run they're going to be able to deal with these people. Because if tomorrow Trump says, oh, it's Mitt Romney, and oh, by the way, Kellyanne's got a job over here too, then the media is going to stand back and say, yeah, but, and then they've got to question the reliability of their sources, which means the public will then question the reliability of the media, and maybe the media will start trying to treat Donald Trump in a bit more what you might call a fair manner. Bill Colley with you this morning on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX and newsradio1310.com. Hope you enjoyed the Thanksgiving holiday. I hope you didn't have difficulty, though, hearing while you were gathered with relatives. We would like to remind you that at Mount Harrison Audiology in Rupert, Dr. Christine Pickup is looking to open your world to new sounds and experiences. A new hearing device is available which works with the brain to help those with hearing loss hear more naturally than any previous aid on the market. She's offering a 2-week free trial with these new devices, and you can call Dr. Pickup today to schedule your personal fitting appointment. Open your world to better hearing. You can call Mount Harrison Audiology, the telephone number 312-0957. That's 312-0957. Randy Staples will join us in about 15 minutes from Idaho Weekly Briefing. Randy's talking about efforts to, well, I don't know that it's going to happen this year, but some in Boise would like to see more money spent on mental health issues across the state. I guess that's to assuage all of the liberals still in denial after Election Day. And number two, about an effort by the BLM to chop down the state's juniper trees. That's coming up. Do you know I skipped the pie with my Thanksgiving dinner on Thursday? Well, I've been on a diet, and losing weight, and I decided that I actually walked to dinner. That took about 35 minutes, and then I spent about 45 minutes walking home just to try to burn off as much as I potentially could because most of my meals aren't that big any longer. But I skipped the pie. And on the walk home the other day, that's when I started to realize I might have a cold because my nose started to run. And first I thought, this is because of cold weather will do that. But then I got home and I'd been home a couple hours and it continued. And I thought, aha, that's evidence that I'm beginning to show the signs, the symptoms of a cold. But it also helped me out over the weekend because when you get a cold, you don't feel like eating all the time. So I decided to hang back a little bit and take it a little easy when it came to the food consumption. And I've been telling you all for the last several weeks about how I have dropped. Well, I haven't been on the scales in 3 weeks, and so I had been down about 40 pounds. I'm probably down closer to 50 now at this point. But I wanted to tell you a little bit how that works. It's called the Total Body Transformation System. It promotes healthy weight loss and wellness. It's not a fad diet. In fact, it is backed up with scientific research that's now more than 2 decades old. It's from a national company with a AAA rating from the Better Business Bureau. It's been featured on the cover of Success magazine. Now, it's also backed up by a lot of researchers at some of the most prestigious universities in the country, and it's scientifically proven to burn 6 times more fat and lose 8 times more weight than normal results from diet and exercise alone. And the average person will drop 22 pounds in just 60 days. Now, I've been telling you that I'm not the only person who's had success with this. Don Chandler, who many of you know here in Twin Falls from his years, of course, in the clothing business, Don lost 50 pounds. He's my contact on this one, and if you'd like to reach Don and you've got any questions or comments for him, his telephone number, area code 208, of course, 731-3560. Once more, you can call Don Chandler. He's at 731-3560. That's 731-3560. We have a caller with us. Caller, you're up next. You're on Top Story at 8:36 on KLIX.
Good morning, Bill. You alluded to it, but the big item in the news, of course, is the potential Green Party and Democratic Party recount. Just so more and more and more of this stuff. But just to refresh people's memories about the Green Party or the environmental movement itself, it started in the mid-'60s. A group of elitists met together at Iron Mountain, New York, and you probably know where that's at. I don't,
Yeah.
But anyway, the conclusion from that was where the objective was, how are we going to control the people on the planet? Well, they came up with two ideas: perpetual war, because people give up their liberty for security, and number two is the environment. And so it wasn't long after that the EPA came by executive order and so forth. But Patrick Moore, he was one of the co-founders of Greenpeace, and he left the organization because he said, this is not about saving the environment. This is about controlling people. And of course, the whole thing has come down through the United Nations and Agenda 21. Now they got Agenda 30, I guess it is. And anyway, it's always the totalitarians, the elitists, basically using the communist methods to control us. And of course, the global warming hoax is just part of this. And so they are going to really have to fight back, and that's what they're doing, because if
Donald Trump, he threatens that world order that they've got planned. I mean, and he threatens it more than any person in recent history.
He better watch his backside, because they're going to try and take him out one way or another. But this is what this is all about. This whole environmental movement is is the two-pronged approach, the perpetual war, which we see going on since the 60s there, the Vietnam War and so forth, and we've been in a war ever since. And the green movement is just moving forward. But if you look at the money behind it, the George Soroses and Warren Buffett's and those kind of people, the elitists are financing this just to control us people. And so we need to, you know, and a comment about Kellyanne Conway. I'll tell you, she is really a fighter. She's been out there and really is a very articulate, extremely intelligent lady.
I would agree with that. And I thank you much for the call. Trump's not the only person who's in trouble by threatening this global order. I read yesterday where Nigel Farage, who is, of course, Trump's strongest English ally, Farage is virtually living in a prison, not in a literal sense, but he has limited places that he can go publicly any longer. Somebody tried to assault Farage while he was out having dinner with his family and his young children, and he's received so many multiple death threats that now he's very limited in where he can just public. He can't even go out and take a walk. Why? Because he's the guy behind the Brexit, and like Trump, he threatens the effort to globalize the planet and to really just leave it in the hands of a handful of people who don't necessarily have your best interests in mind. They may not hate you, but you wouldn't want to cross them and hurt their own private, greedy, personal interests. Coming up on 20 minutes from 9 o'clock, Randy Staples will join us next from Idaho Weekly Briefing. Bill Colley with you on Top Story this morning on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and newsradio1310.com. It's 33. Should we be cutting down the state's juniper trees? Randy will be talking with me about that.